rebuilding. The catastrophic failure, a new start. Physically, mentally, our careers, our businesses. Step back, first step, next step. The driver in me just wants to get it done tomorrow. We'll do this, do that, let's move this, where are we at with this? You build some confidence, build some self-esteem, start to feel better about yourself. The Silverback Blueprint Podcast, a show for men over 40 who focus on getting stronger, staying motivated, building discipline, creating a community, and becoming truly happy. Hey guys, welcome to episode 64 of the Silverback Blueprint Podcast. The pleasure of tuning out the negative. I just wanted to inflect a little bit more on the word pleasure. You know, one of the things that I'm doing in part of my daily ritual, and this is something I was just talking to Luke about, is that, you know, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've kind of gotten off the daily ritual thing. So I need to emphasize how important that is. So in the last week or so, I've gotten back at it. And again, a world of difference. 10x, 20x, Grant Cardone's 100x. I don't fucking know. I don't even know how many X's he uses. But it's so powerful, guys. It's super, super powerful. And one of the things that I'm doing, I have a daily affirmation that I use, but one of the new things, and I just picked this up about 2 months ago, and I saw someone post it on Facebook. I picked up a book called The Daily Stoic. And it's written by a guy named Ryan Holiday, and he's got a buddy, Stephen Hanselman, that helped him. I don't know what he did. Maybe just did the spell check, or who knows what's going on. Luke will put that in the show notes. And Stoicism is a type of philosophy about mastering your inner feelings and emotions and stuff. And it's done through a couple of philosophers from the way back when, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. You may have heard of him. Caesar type guy, you know, ancient Rome, Greece. You know, it's pretty cool. I was there in May, and this book kind of came. I saw this book afterwards, and I'm like, it kind of struck home when I was standing in the ruins in Greece, and I was standing in the Colosseum, and I was standing in the ruins in Athens. So powerful, and to think that the, you know, modern day philosophies and those things all happened there. Guys in robes just sat there and said stupid shit and smart shit, and people got stoned for whatever reason. Not like today's stone, but, you know, like with stones and shit. Very violent time. But, you know, the dawning of modern day civilization happened there, and, you know, standing there I was awestruck. It was amazing to sit there and just visualize that thousands of years ago, you know, some of the modern day thinking that we have was born there. Right? So very powerful, very humbling, if you will. And so I was perusing Facebook daily, as I like to do, for motivation and shits and giggles and stuff. And there's a lot of people putting good information out there. You know, hopefully that's how you found this podcast. So a guy I just happen to follow once in a while happened to put something out, and he quoted the Daily Stoic. So what's really cool is that they break it down into like basically a daily page or two that talks about a concept, talks about a quote from one of these early philosophers and stuff. The Epictetus guy, he was actually a prisoner for most of his life, and a lot of these things he came up when he was sitting there, you know, just he had a lot of time on his hands, and he wanted to be positive, not go crazy, I guess, right? So that's where a lot of his thinkings and his thoughts came from. And, you know, every day has got, you know, like November 29th or 27th as we are today, as we're recording this. You know, I go to it every day. There's a quote, and then there's a bit of an explanation, and then there's like a modern day explanation to it. And I thought today's was pretty cool, where it said basically the pleasure of tuning out the negative. And I got that from just reading that. And basically it's the fundamental thinking of just, if something's a negative situation, remove it or yourself from it. That's simple. Right? They use the example as if every time you're at dinner and you bring up politics, it turns into a big fight, right? Then stop bringing up politics. Especially if you're with people that aren't going to see your way or never understand your viewpoint or not want to hear your viewpoint, right? So it doesn't matter how articulate you are about it. If you're just like, you know, that's the way my dad did it, and that's the way his pappy did it before me, and that's the way we're going to do it today. You know, when you run into that, it doesn't really matter what you're bringing to the table. Right? But if that's always that topic comes up and it leads into a big fight and weirdness and angry, then just don't do it. Don't talk about that stuff with those people. Find other people to talk about it. Share your views. I mean, learn to also hear someone else's other point of view, even if it's different from your own and stuff, and be able to listen and appreciate, especially if they're how can I say that? If they're communicating in a positive way and you can tell that they truly believe this, let them be heard because you want to be heard. But if you're not in that situation, if every time you go to your friend's house and he gets liquored up and it turns into a big fight because 20 years ago this happened and he hasn't fucking gotten over it, remove yourself. Tune that out. Get that out of your headspace. We talk about the circle of 5 and who you hang out with. If you hang out with negative people, you become negative. If you hang out with 4 douchebags, you know what happens? You end up becoming the 5th douchebag. So I think that's what they're coming from on that, is that, and I don't believe, for me anyway, it's not about sticking your head in the sand either. If there's a situation that needs to be dealt with and you haven't dealt with it, that's a different story. Just tuning out the fact that, every Friday night, one of your kids comes home drunk and throwing up all over the floor, right? Just ignoring it isn't going to solve that either. That's a different story, right? If every time you go out in public, your spouse treats you like shit and belittles you, well, that's a different story. You don't stick your head in the sand about that, right? You have to deal with that. You have to figure out what's going on. Is that something you can solve? Is it something you can fix? How do you fix it? Is it you removing yourself completely? Is it about having discussion? Is it about counseling? Is it about whatever, right? Things are going horribly wrong at work, right? Don't just stick your head in the sand about that. Deal with what is it that you can fix? Does work need to change? You need to change? Does something need to be addressed? That's a different story. And I don't think that's what they mean here, right? But if every time you're at work and you're sitting with a certain group at the lunch table and they talk about sports, and I had this happen to me one time, hanging out with a couple of buddies. They were really big sports aficionados. And one day I said something and they laughed at me because I was wrong. And you know what? At the end of the day, I said, you know what? I don't need that, right? And there's one thing, I say something fucking stupid and we laugh. That's a different story. But no, they were just laughing at me. Oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, you know what? 2 things happen there. I don't like to be talked to that way. And number 2, they were right. I really don't know that much about sports. Not enough to hang out with those guys and be able to quote statistics from 1977. So I don't enjoy that. So you know what? I remove myself from that. Right? We hear stories all the time about the in-laws. Oh, the in-laws are coming and this and that and the other thing. It wasn't always smooth with my in-laws. Right? But over the years, we worked some stuff out. Some stuff I had to change. Some stuff they had to change. We found some common ground. But even that, there's a vibe that'll change sometimes, especially when people get older. I'm 49, so my in-laws are in their 70s and 80s and stuff like that. They're not going to change some views and stuff like that. So rather than get angry about it, I just don't have those conversations. Move to the other side of the room. And you know what? Since I learned to do that, it's so much better. And it's better for them as well. Right? There's certain things we can't change. Certain things we have to deal with. We have to find a way to deal with it and stuff like that. But, tuning out the negativity as much as possible. Facebook's a prime example. You got 2 camps on Facebook. People that are always putting positive stuff. You think like, oh my God, they have the fucking best life in the world. And then you got the negative ones, right? My favorite post is like, blah, blah, blah. How dare they? And if you don't agree with me, you're the problem too. I don't think there's anything more negative than that. I've, in the last little bit, unfriended a ton of people. If you're going to go on a social media platform and you're going to put something out there, but you tell people, don't you dare, disagree with me, then I'm like, why don't you just talk into a mirror? Because you're doing the same thing. Now, maybe you're just venting. Okay, well, you know what? I really don't want to hear people vent, especially when people vent all the time. Right? Because that's their modality, Oh, the quotes were the guys, oh, I love being a jerk, and I'm a jerk, and if you don't like it, fuck you. I'm like, no, fuck you. I'm a bitch, and that's just the way it is. I'm like, you know what? Then do your own thing. Move away from that. I'm like, you know what? That's not even cool. Right? In fact, it's funny when someone who's not like that puts that post up. If you watch most of the posts I put up on Facebook, 99% of them are positive, they're motivating, they're cool stuff, shit that's going on. The real deal, as I like to call it. I even share the odd post about kittens. I like kittens, right? But at the end of the day, you don't see me go off and rant. Once in a while, I might say something, but it's so rare that when I do it, it actually gets a lot of views and it gets a lot more comments and feedback because that's not the norm for me. So if I see something really stupid out there and I voice my opinion about it, that opinion gets heard. If I had a shitty day and this happened, and I post about it, it's usually just so we can have a chuckle, right? And then at the end of the day, it has a different effect. But it, so I love social media, but I don't like the negativity. I don't like the attacking, right? I don't like that keyboard tough guy. Before it would be just emails and shitty posts on message boards and stuff like that. Now with Facebook and Instagram, you can shit all over anyone. YouTube, there's guys who are making YouTube money by just tearing down other people in their industries and their niches and stuff like that, right? Some of them do it because it's kind of funny the way they do it. Some of them are doing it just to be mean and fucking hateful, and they'll never do anything themselves. Those guys, I don't have time for, right? Because if you hang around the negativity, it affects you. Maybe not right away. Maybe so subtly that over time, you start finding yourself thinking a little more negatively, right? My favorite, it's just, this is November when we're recording this podcast. I think we got our first inch of snow that stayed on the ground, half inch though. And people are like, oh my God, I hate the winter. I'm like, it's Canada. What the fuck? And you hating it? That's magically going to change something about it? Now, we get 17 feet of snow in one dumping. I'm like, holy fuck, that's a lot of snow. That's a different thing, right? But if you really don't like the winter, then fucking move. Or just stay there and piss and moan about it. But then I'm just like, I haven't got time. I'm going to block that out. I'm not going to hear it. So you're really just talking to yourself, right? But that negativity will wear on you. It'll take energy from you. You've heard the term emotional vampires, right? We all have that friend. I used to. I don't have many friends like that anymore. That every time you saw them, like, hey, what's going on? Oh, you won't believe what just happened. I can't believe this has happened. And they're negative, and this is never working, and this is, and it's this person's fault. This is that person's fault. And they'll fucking talk to you for an hour and a half, right? Because you're trying to be a nice guy, and you're like, oh, yeah, I hear you. But when that guy and girl in front of you has always got the same fucking problem, we all know they're the problem. It's not the situation. Can't believe I'm in another relationship with a girl that treats me that way. Well, I can, because that's the type of fucking girl you go out with. It's that simple. Right? Girls like, I'm tired of being treated this way by a man. Then stop going out with men that treat you that way. You fucking know what they're like right out of the gate. But you haven't got the courage and the confidence to stand up for yourself and want more for yourself, so you feel that's all you're worth, and that's the kind of shit you accept. And that's the way it is with life, guys. We need to make ourselves stronger mentally, make ourselves stronger physically so we feel more positive. We have better self-esteem. We hold ourselves in a higher regard. The most important form of respect is self-respect. I've said it a million times, and I never exaggerate. Right? And until we do that, we're not going to get what we want out of life. Don't be arrogant. Don't be a fucking douchebag, because then you're the negative person. You're having a negative effect on people around you, right? But work on making yourself better and improving yourself, increasing your sense of self-worth justifiably, because you work hard and you're consistent and you're achieving the goals that you have for yourself and the vision that you have for your life. And if you do that, the things around you are going to change. Who you're attracted to is going to change. Who's attracted to you is going to change. We said this in an episode before. The majority of people out there don't fucking want you to succeed. So what's the best way to get rid of them? Start to succeed. Make it so they remove themselves. Right? I was just checking my emails, and one of my staff posted something about how someone is offering a program similar to ours, and they're a douche. Right? I know it. The staff knows it. Believe me, the industry knows it. So at first I would have got really pissed. I'm like, they're just copying us, doing this, that, and the other thing. And then I truly believe, I'm like, it doesn't matter what they do. They're not us. They're not who we are at Hostile. They're not our coaches. They're not our system. They're not our style. So it doesn't matter in the long term. Who loves us as a business is going to love us no matter what. Who appreciates what we do, who respects what we do, is never going to change as long as we do it for the right reasons and we do it properly and do it because we care. And with the whole, I want my client to achieve and I want to help others. I get asked many times about different modalities of training. That's not who we are. It's not in our wheelhouse. 10, 15 years ago, I would be like, yeah, we'll do it. As long as I'm one YouTube video ahead of them, I'm ahead. But I don't believe in that anymore. I'm not good at Olympic lifting. I don't like Olympic lifting. Do I understand Olympic lifting? Yes. Could I teach some of it? Probably. But am I doing my client the best service who's looking for that? Fuck no. So you know what? I'd much rather send them to someone who that's what they do and they're really good at it, whether they're my competition or not. And they're really not my competition because I don't teach Olympic lifting. So at the end of the day, how about I just send that client over there because I know they're going to be well taught there because that's their wheelhouse. And I know if I do that, that client's going to remember that I did that I looked out for them and put them above us. Rather than me trying to get 10 sessions of personal training in and making that sale, I looked out for the client and said, I want them to get the most out of those 10 sessions. So I want them to go there where I know they're going to get the best that I know of in that niche. And that client will remember that. So when they need something that's in our wheelhouse, who do you think they're going to come and see? Us. They're going to remember that we looked out for them. That's the longevity. That's the time in. That's that courageous patience we talk about in what you're doing. Right? To me, that's super, super important. But it's a much more positive way to handle things. It's a more mature way to handle things. Right? At the end of the day, don't worry about what someone who's less than you is doing. And don't worry about sending someone to see someone who's better at you in something, because the two of them are super important to handle properly. Right? If someone comes to me and they want to learn all about spinning, I'm not a fucking spinning guy. I got some spinning bikes. I know of it. But you know what? It's not my thing. But if I know a better place to send someone and they're really into spinning and stuff, there's a couple studios in Ottawa. I'm like, go check these out. That's not our thing. In the retail, they used to get stuck all the time. Like, oh, do you carry this? I'm like, no, but give me 20 minutes. I'll get it in for you. And we'd run around like fools. Get it in, maybe not get it in. And inevitably, the customer would end up getting jerked around or not get what they wanted. Or I would get it, but make very little profit on it because by the time I went through all the steps and the time wasted on it, that I said, you know what? I'm just not doing that anymore. Here's the things I carry. Here's what we're good at. Here's what I love doing. And it's led to a better business. It's led to a more positive environment, a more positive business experience, not just for us, but for the client. We have it happen more and more where people come in, hey, I heard about you guys, you do this, this, and this. I'm like, yeah, who sent you? Oh, this guy, he was here a year ago, and you helped him out with this. That's the far-reaching effect of being in your wheelhouse and caring about what you do and doing a good job at what you do in your skill set and thinking about what the client's needs are. Super, super important. And then you got to balance that with the other stuff that's out there in business where, you know what, you could really use a little more sales today, this week, or this month because of the business, right? But that's that balancing. Understanding that, you know what, that's cool. Let's work on this. Let's promote more what we're good at. Let's do a better job of what we're already doing a good job on. That other stuff's going to happen, right? The negativity is the far most damaging thing around us. So that's what I think for me is important about limiting that negativity. In AA, we have the serenity prayer, right? Which basically says, grant me the serenity to know what I can change, the courage to change what I can change, and the wisdom to know what I can't change. Super, super important. It's the same thing when we deal with negativity. Is this a negative situation that I can fix? If it is, then fix it. If it's not, then move on. If it's bigger than me. If your neighbor's just a fucking prick, it doesn't matter what you're going to do because that's on him. He's got issues. Who knows what it is? So fuck it. You don't need to say hi to him every day. Right? Just walk on the other side of your driveway. It doesn't matter. Don't let that get to you. I'm not saying it's easy. It's actually hard at first because we have emotions. How dare someone make me feel that way? Right? But forget about that. Rise above that. Right? Be stronger than that. Be stoic. Right? Control your emotions. Understand that, you know what, who knows what's going on with that person. Maybe he's had a shitty life. Maybe his wife just left him. Who knows? Right? Don't let it ruin your day. You just came home, you're in a positive mood, you had a great day, and you're going to let a little thing like that fuck with your day? It's pretty weak. The pleasure of tuning out the negative, guys. Super important. And as always, guys, work hard, motherfuckers. And I'll talk to you guys later. Head on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and head on over to hostilegear.com. Use the code Silverback to get 20% off some of the most amazing t-shirts and hoodies. Luke wants me to come out with a hoodie that says baton on it because I used the word baton in a couple last podcasts, and we fucking laughed because it was like the stupidest word I've ever said. It's right up there, the top 3. So now we're going to come up with a baton. Don't pass the baton. There's some life lesson stuff. Don't pass the baton, Johnny. Guys, I'll talk to you later.